So it was sort of escapism, and also to make my older brother laugh, because he'd be like, I need the next installment. What happens with finding Chaz? And I edited it a lot, obviously, as an adult, because some of it, it wouldn't fly today. It was kind of just out there. But I hammered out the first 200 pages as a 13-year-old and then just like forgot about it for about 8 years. And during COVID, I was talking to my brother. He was like, you need to bring this back. That was a great story. You have so many new ideas for it. And we just kind of had like this session where we just bounced ideas, and he still like was all over it.
Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Gist McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today a super special guest who is launching her brand new book called Finding Chaz. Now, this is going to be a fascinating read, especially for anyone who's into young adult literature, coming of age literature. I have with us today Anisa Ashabi. Anisa, thanks for being here.
Morgan, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk about the book.
This is it's a fascinating book. And we have two characters, Roxie and Chaz. Can you tell us a little bit about Roxie and Chaz and where we meet them at the beginning of the book?
For sure. So Roxie is the main character. She's narrating the book. She's a freshman in high school. And I think she has a really unique voice because she's a little bit sassy. She's a little bit edgy. But at her core, she wants to do good. She wants to be a good person. But she's kind of had some things thrown her way in life. Her dad has passed away 4 years prior to the story starting. And kind of the bane of her existence at school is this kid, Chaz Humbert, the title character. And he is basically just a creep, like that kid in school that nobody likes because he sexually harasses girls. He's always there. He's, not a bully, but just a harasser. And she despises him. And so that's kind of where the story kicks off, with Roxie at odds with Chaz.
This is set like modern day high school, basically, right?
Specifically the 2006-2007 school year. I started writing it a while ago. And when writing it, I was like, some of these references aren't exactly modern anymore. And I decided to set it in a time that's not too far past, but there will be like some nostalgia when you're reading it.
That's really fun, because I feel like we kind of have been overlooking the 2000s. A lot of millennials are writing about like the 80s or maybe early 90s. I mean, a lot of older folks are going all the way back to 50s and 60s, but we haven't really had a lot of sort of newer young adult, new adult kind of coming of age stories. So I think that's really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, me too.
So, okay, what kind of conflict are we going to see? Because I mean, when you hear about Roxie and Chaz, you might be thinking, okay, is this setting up for like a love interest? Is this setting up for like a murder mystery? Like,
it's definitely an enemies to friends. There's no romance between Roxie and Chaz. Spoiler alert. But I think it's better to kind of leave room to focus exclusively on friendships, because that's what the core of this book is about. Just like a really genuine story about real friendship. And you don't see that coming at the beginning because, like I said, Roxie and Chaz, they're not friends. Chaz consistently harasses Roxie and her best friend, Hannah, along with a bunch of other girls at school. He doesn't get in trouble because he's a teacher's son. And they're trying to figure out, okay, like, why is he immune to punishment, even when we have evidence that this is what he's doing? And then Roxie and Chaz end up getting suspended in school together. And that's kind of where the friendship blossoms from, because Chaz reveals this truth that Roxie never would have considered could be possible about Chaz before.
What are the themes that you explore in the book? What do you feel like a reader might kind of get out of this book at a thematic level?
So I think when I think about the characters in Finding Chaz, at the beginning, you might think like one stereotypical thing about them. And then as the story goes along, I don't know, I think of them like each as an onion. So this outside layer is, okay, I think I have this person figured out. And then as the layers come off, you realize that these characters are so much more complex than you might have expected at the beginning point of the book. And that was really important to me, was like combating these stereotypes about marginalized groups or about different races of people or people of a different sexual orientation. And that comes into play too, but not in the traditional sense. So I think it's unique.
Yeah, and I think that is something that we're really kind of craving with just as a society and our younger population, like, well, I don't really want to think of, you know, people as just one race or one sexuality or one typology, that we really want to be able to give people a little bit more room to be the complex people that they are. And you feel like that's something that Roxie and Chaz kind of get to show us?
Definitely. I didn't want any of the characters being one-dimensional, and I think that was something that I accomplished with the book. It was very important to me that nobody was a stereotype, or, you know, there was no one defining feature about any of them. So
Awesome.
I hope people will see it that way.
So if you had to let people know, okay, if you like reading this kind of book, then you might like Finding Chaz. What kinds of books come to mind for you?
I think it's such a broad genre because it is a young adult book, but many of my beta readers were adults, and it really resonated with them as well. So I don't know, I would say it's really for anybody that loves a story about friendship. They like to laugh because there is a lot of funny moments and dialogue in Finding Chaz. And I think a lot of people will just feel that nostalgia for their high school days, kind of regardless of what decade they grew up in, because it has this timeless feel. I didn't want to put, even though there are references to the 2000s, I didn't want to be too heavy with that so that everybody could relate to it.
Awesome. So if you're curious, if you're hearing us talk about Finding Chaz and you're like, I want to check that book out, the good news is, because the book is launching, we want to get it into as many hands as possible. You can actually grab a free copy of the ebook if you go to paperravenbooks.com/Finding Chaz. That is all one word, and that's Chaz, C-H-A-Z. And it's also linked up next to this video. You click that link, it takes you over to Amazon. You can grab a free copy, load it up on your Kindle. Even if you're going to read it this weekend, go ahead and get it now while you're here and while you're thinking about it. And of course, you can grab a physical copy if you prefer the physical copy. We're doing the ebook promotion just so that we can try to get it into as many hands as possible right away. So go to paperravenbooks.com/Finding Chaz. And I'm curious, Anisa, because you're from the Pacific Northwest, you've studied journalism and communication, and you're really writing this book on the margins of kind of your day job. What has your writing process been like in putting together Finding Chaz?
So for this book, it's pretty unique because I actually started it back in 2012. So it's been a long time coming. I was 13 years old when I started writing it. And at that point, at the beginning stages, I was obsessed. I would sit down and write. I mean, as a 13-year-old, you don't have that many responsibilities. So I would sit down, 4, 5, 6 hours a day and just hammer out, this book. And I was going through a difficult time. I was in middle school, didn't have a ton of friends at this point. So I almost created the world of Roxie and Chaz as like an escape from the reality and kind of an alternate experience that I wanted for myself. And that really came into play when crafting the best friend Hannah in the story. So it was sort of escapism, and also to make my older brother laugh because he'd be like, I need the next installment. What happens with Finding Chaz? And I edited it a lot, obviously, as an adult, because some of it, it wouldn't fly today. It was kind of just out there. But I hammered out the first 200 pages as a 13-year-old and then just like forgot about it for about 8 years. And during COVID, I was talking to my brother. He was like, you need to bring this back. That was a great story. You have so many new ideas for it. And we just kind of had like this session where we just bounced ideas, and he still was all over it. And, during 2020, 2021, finished it, came up with a really, in my opinion, satisfying ending, because that was what I had struggled with before. And here we are. It's, it's going to be out in just a short time, and I'm going to be an author. So it's very exciting.
That is amazing. And I love that this is part of your story, Anisa, because I think so many of us who maybe we have this dormant desire to write a book, we maybe realized that we wanted to write a book when we were younger. Mm-hmm. For some people, I think it's like 6, 8, 10 years old. I think for others, it's sort of like teens, right around that 13, 15, 18 range. But there's some like younger, really creative, expressive part of ourselves that maybe we wrote something, maybe we didn't, but we had this sort of like spark of desire. And then we get into adulthood and, college, and then a job, and then like slowly we just let it just fizzle out and die. And I kind of love that you went back to it and said, yeah, I was 13 when I originally created Roxie and Chaz and Hannah, but they had that sort of like spark of life in them. Exactly. A real authenticity, because you were 13 when you created them. that you were looking at the people around you and what you wanted. Like, that's so cool. So when you went back and read those initial drafts, like what was it that made you think this might work?
Well, I think there's so many authors that, really talented authors, but when you're writing characters that are so much younger than you, there might be a disconnect and they might not be as relatable, as they would be if they're being told through the eyes of somebody who's that age. You're not going to get much more relatable than somebody telling a story about characters that are their age. And so when I went back and I read it, I was like, this is just raw and authentic. And to be able to come back as an adult and infuse like new life experiences and wisdom into a story that I wrote about, very loosely based, but off of like my peers and my experiences as a kid, and then just like combine those with adult experiences, I think it's really special. And I think it kind of turned into something more beautiful than it could have been had I written it completely at 13 or now as an adult at 23. So it's kind of like just a hybrid, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's kind of perfect because you have the base, like backstories and motivations of characters from a real teenager's perspective.
Mhm.
And then you sort of let it simmer, come back as an adult, and you're like, okay, well, let's like really put, some narrative arcs in here and really flesh this out, give it that satisfactory ending. I mean, this is how we should all write books now. Let it sit for a few years and then come back. So, I think
it was something, because my brother would always periodically, like in 2014, 2015, 2016, he'd make references to the dialogue. He'd be like, that's such a Cynthia thing to say, or like a Nick thing to say. And I would laugh and I'd roll my eyes and be like, I'm not going back to it. Leave me alone. But he just wouldn't let up. And I was like, my brother is a super tough critic. He wouldn't blow smoke. This must be something. And I mean, I think I owe it all to him for really believing in me and offering ideas and hashing this out. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. So if you go back to the younger version of yourself, maybe when you were writing, maybe before you started writing, and give her some wisdom now that you've gone through the whole journey, right? Written the book, edited the book, published the book, like the book is coming out. If you could give her any like heads up, encouragement, what might you say to a younger version of Anisa?
Oh man, so much. But as far as writing goes, I really started writing when I was 6 or 7. I kind of was that kid that always had the notebook or my mom's laptop and just coming up with these crazy stories. I know it sounds corny, but don't give up. Don't let life get in the way. Don't go for the job that isn't going to make you happy. Don't go for the profession that, you're looking at the clock and being like, oh God, when am I going to get out of here? Because, I've worked some of those jobs and they're character building, but just if you have a story inside, like let it out. Even if 10 people buy your book, at least you did it and you fulfilled that dream. And that's been my dream since I was like 6 years old. So I'm really proud of myself. And I don't say that lightly. I don't get proud of myself a lot, but for seeing something through and having my name on it. And it's really just surreal.
Just do it.
Yeah, take it to the grave. Take it from cradle to grave. Let that project actually come to fruition, even if it takes 10 years.
I love that. So you guys, if y'all are here and you're like, I want to know more about this Finding Chaz book that we're talking about, the good news is you can go to paperhavenbooks.com/Finding Chaz, all one word. You can grab a free copy of the ebook right now while we're launching the book. If you know someone who loves the young adult, the new adult, the high school, the coming of age types of books with some humor, some sarcasm, some discovery of self-expression, all sort of mixed in there, some surprise twists.
Definitely some surprises.
Someone who likes a good surprise twist, tag them in this video or share this video with them so they can get a copy of the book too. paperhavenbooks.com/Finding Chaz. Anisa, any last words for your readers?
I hope people will give this a chance. I think I know every author says this, it's unique, but I do think it's really unique. I think it is a book that I would have wanted to read as a younger person. It's a book that I would have wanted to read now. And if some feedback from my beta readers, it reads like a Netflix show. So if you're a Netflix show binger, maybe check out Finding Chaz. It's kind of similar genre to many of the shows that I enjoy and you might enjoy too. So like laughs, life lessons, all of that good stuff.
And you're not done writing. This is book 1.
Oh, heck no. No, I'm not done. I'm just getting started. So I already have big plans for new characters, for old characters. It's all coming.
So if y'all want to jump in, you want to meet Roxie and Chaz and Hannah and this kind of fun, lighthearted, surprising story, then go ahead and jump in now and get to know Anisa's world, this world that is being built with Roxie and company, and see what's coming next. So paperravenbooks.com/finding Chaz, grab that free book, tag a friend, and yeah, we hope that you guys enjoy. All right, congratulations, Anisa. We'll keep you posted on the book and the book launch and this whole new readership that the book is opening up to. So we're cheering on the launch of Finding Chaz. We hope you have a great book launch week, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.